All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here today, our alumni and our students. I am guessing some students will continue to join in the next couple of minutes, but for now, we can go ahead and get started. Alumni, if you wouldn't mind turning on your cameras, that would be a huge help. As Meg may have mentioned, we're going to record just the first few minutes of this session, and it's always nice for students to be able to put a face to the name and the wonderful advice that you will give. So that would be fantastic. I did see that we lost one of our panelists, so hopefully he'll be able to come back in, but otherwise we'll just kind of keep rolling. If you're able to also turn off your audio when you aren't speaking, that does make it just a little bit easier in terms of feedback, but otherwise we'll be good to go. And I will be moderating student questions. Students, please feel free to put any questions you have into the chat, or you can also raise your hand and turn on video and audio, or just audio if you prefer, to ask a question as well. We've got some great alumni here today, and I know you have questions. I see some familiar names, so I know you've got great questions, so please do not hesitate to ask. All right, so I think to kind of get things rolling and get things started, if you wouldn't mind doing some introductions, and if it would be okay, let's start with Kim. Do you mind just introducing yourself and giving us a quick overview of your career path?
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. My name is Kim Sereff, and cheers from Denver, Colorado. And no, hope everyone is doing well today. So I've been really looking forward to this event, and I just wanted to share with you that I do work directly with the federal government. I am in the trenches. I am not a federal contractor at all. And when I graduated from the UW, my uncle worked for the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, and he told me how wonderful the government was to work for. It had great pay, it had great benefits. And as you can imagine, when I was getting ready to graduate, the loans were kind of high. And so I did need to find, a job that was going to help, pay me some monies. But anyhow, I took the test to become an air traffic controller. And I was sent down to Oklahoma City. And I lasted for about 4 months, and I realized that it quite wasn't the path for me. So I went to Breckenridge, Colorado, and I worked the hotel industry for about a year and a half. And while I was there, a federal investigator was I checked in a federal investigator, and he told me that he would love to have me on their team. And he literally gave me all the paperwork to fill out to apply for a job, again, with the federal government. And I did. And this was with the Office of Personnel Management, and it was in the investigations division, and I loved this job. I was able to have a lot of freedoms. I did all the background security checks for everybody throughout the United States. I had my own government issued car. It was a wonderful job. But then after 3 years, this division was bought out by a private company. And so, I went through my first reduction of force at a really young age, and it was scary, but this taught me to be really prepared for changes, and you have to be ready for that as you're going through your career. I can see some heads nodding a little bit. So anyhow, within a month, I interviewed with the State Department, and I was flown out to Washington, D.C., and I interviewed with them to be a diplomatic security officer, and I was selected. But again, it's the budget. Everything in the federal government involves the budget, and they had no more monies for training. And so again, that did not work out. And so then I was unemployed for about 5 months, something else that you need to be prepared for as you're going through different careers in your lifetime. And I was hired then by Department of Labor, and I learned a lot, and I enforced the equal employment laws and regulations. I needed a change, and so then I went into the housing area, and this led me to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. I got to learn about fair housing. I got to learn about the Office of Native American Programs. That's where I learned about grant management. I have been on over 30 Indian reservations. through my time with them. And now currently I'm in the Financial Management Center and I work as a financial analyst with HUD. And I think the key thing I just wanted to share with you is that I stayed diversified. It's really important not to get stuck in one office, one skill. You keep wanting to learn new skills. And so don't wait for opportunities to come to you. Don't wait for that magic phone call. It's really important to network and be open to all the opportunities that come your way. The pluses to the federal government, it's pretty simple. It's the benefits. It's the idea of having a pension. It's the idea of having health care. I have annual leave. I have sick leave. Some of the negatives that are involved with the federal government would be the budget. Whenever the budget is not signed, there's a shutdown. I've been involved in about 3 to 5 of those. You rely on Congress. Everything is the focus around Congress. And of course, as many of you know, the technology. The federal government is behind in technology, and they are working so hard to try to get caught up to the private sector on that. So anyhow, I'm looking forward to hearing from my colleagues out there, and it's been great. I'm looking forward to as we move forward, just with some of the questions that you may have.
Thanks so much, Kim. That is fantastic advice. I definitely appreciate the willingness to adapt and change and open to new opportunities. It's a very important skill to have, especially as we've all learned during the COVID pandemic. Important thing to be able to do. All right, John, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm John Stanoch. I'm in Minnetonka, which is a suburb of Minneapolis, a 1980 graduate of UW-Madison with a degree in political science. Like Kim, I've done different things at different points in my career. Being a political science student, I came back and went to a year of graduate school at the University of Minnesota and then went to law school. So early parts of my career, I was a lawyer and a lobbyist, represented people before governmental agencies. Also got very involved in my community and politics and ended up being campaign chairman for a Minnesota governor. I did such a lousy job on his campaign that he lost, although I don't think it was entirely my fault, but he then appointed me a district court judge. And so I served as a judge for 8 years in Minneapolis, Hennepin County, and then went back into, I continued in government, but in a different role. I was chief deputy attorney general for the state of Minnesota. So I'd always intended to be involved in public service, was very interested in government and politics from a young age. And I thought, well, maybe I ought to do something after 10 years of public service. So I was going to go practice law with a law firm. But then I had an amazing opportunity to run the Minnesota operations for a major telecommunications company. And so I did that for 10 years, ran a big business. And then we were purchased by a company, CenturyLink, which is also a provider of communication services in Wisconsin and in Denver. I worked for Quest Communications, was the name of the company, headquartered in Denver. And so when we merged, they were the acquiring party. So I thought, well, time to do something else. And then for my third chapter, I went and ran Ronald McDonald House Charities, the Upper Midwest. It's an organization that provides a place to stay and provide comfort for families with seriously ill children. And after I did that for about 4.5 years, I thought, well, now I'm probably ready for retirement. And then along the way, I had been on some boards. So the Science Museum of Minnesota, the leader left, and I did an interim president role there. And then a friend of mine who was the head of the Minneapolis Regional Chamber of Commerce got sick, and so they asked me to fill in while they were doing a search. So I had 3 aspects to my career. There was the government and government interaction, very intense on the front end, including the judiciary and the legal profession, then a stint in private business, and then I went on to civic leadership. So look forward to talking more and answering your questions, but there are multiple pathways. I think one of the amazing things about a liberal arts degree, and particularly from the University of Wisconsin, it prepares you to be a problem solver and a good communicator. And those skills are applicable in all sorts of different jobs. And if I might just also add, my son actually lives in Denver, and he went to school in Washington, D.C. I was kind of bummed he didn't go to Wisconsin, but he informed me the nation's capital is not located in Madison, Wisconsin. I was kind of found that shocking. But he went to school thinking he was going to be an international diplomat. He was really interested in the State Department, and then went to work for a Minnesota congressman and worked on Capitol Hill for a number of years, and then followed his wife, who had a business opportunity to go to Denver, and he's now with a public affairs consulting firm. So, you know, just another example how different pathways with a liberal arts education can really open a lot of doors. So I look forward to the discussion and the questions.
That's a really fantastic point, John. I think, you know, it can be a little bit intimidating for a student to have so many options open, even if, you know, government is something that they're interested in. There are still so many paths within that area that are also options as well. So it can be a little bit intimidating, but definitely a lot of opportunities. And as kind of both of you have demonstrated, lots of opportunities for change. And it's not a single path that you have to follow and then you're committed to for your entire career. Lots of opportunities to move around back and forth, take advantage of new opportunities. So thank you so much for highlighting that. Megan, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Meghan Rowe. I live here in Madison, Wisconsin, a native of Tomah, Wisconsin, which is in west central part of the state. So I graduated from the university in 2008 with a political science and legal studies degree, and spent a lot of my time during school in internships, and had a internship in the governor's office at the time, which Governor Jim Doyle, which led to my first full-time job in government after graduation. I spent about a year and a half in his office before making my trip out to Washington, D.C., where I spent about almost 10 years out there. Most of my time was on Capitol Hill working for members of the House and Senate. The work I did primarily revolved around communications, media relations, public relations. So speech writing, talking to reporters, press releases, prepping the members of Congress for interviews. And then I spent about the last year of the Obama administration at the Department of Health and Human Services, where I also led a team of public affairs and communications folks, specifically in oversight over health information technology. So that led itself at the end of the administration to an opportunity to move back to Wisconsin and work for Epic, which is a healthcare software company here outside of Madison. I'm sure some folks are familiar, but leading their PR team, working on any number of things that the company was involved in. So had a brief stint in the private sector that lasted about 3 years, and I just really had an itch to get back into the government politics field. And so someone who I had met back in 2012 during a political campaign suggested we partner together and start a consulting company. So for about the last year or so, he and I have had a public affairs, communications, political consulting company. So we have any number of clients now. We do political campaigns, we do issue advocacy, we work with some corporations, nonprofits, and so it's an exciting way to kind of scratch that itch of working in government and politics, but have the ability to work across many different sectors and with different clients. So I am very much looking forward to answering your questions today, and I'll stop there.
Thanks so much. Yeah, that is a really interesting kind of career path to highlight as well, having gone from Wisconsin to DC and back again. That is obviously a huge area of interest for a lot of students working in the Capitol, working in DC. So I'm sure you'll have some questions about that and kind of what it's like to live there and network there. So thank you so much for sharing. I know, Mike, you were having some tech issues a little bit earlier. Are you able to hear us and join? Wonderful. Wonderful to see you again. Please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Mike. I am a 2005 UW graduate. I'm originally from the Milwaukee area. And just to give you a sort of a sense of my age, I remember my freshman year coming back to Chadbourne, my dorm, and seeing the news of September 11th. So that was right when that happened. I was a political science major and a German major, so I had gotten a lot of credits from my high school German classes, so I turned that into a second major. But I'd say poli-sci was more my area of interest. I took a lot of classes in college, especially constitutional law classes with Professor Schwaber. I remember really enjoying a lot, and other great classes they had. Few things I did during college I would just mention is I reached out to he was then the Dane County District Attorney Brian Blanchard, and to just look to get some experience. And so I was able to volunteer in the district attorney's office here in Madison for, I don't know, it was probably a few months. He's now a Court of Appeals judge, by the way. Another thing I did was I interned in Washington, D.C. for Senator Russ Feingold. That was something if I recall, I was able to get some credit for it. So I did that over one summer. It does not pay, so it's not for everybody, and not everybody can do it. But it was a great experience. Because it doesn't pay, there are those opportunities, and it's maybe not as competitive, and there are some other opportunities out there as well. My wife did one working for then Representative Tammy Baldwin for a program Marquette had. So that would be something I'd recommend. And I also connected with the legal studies people, even though that wasn't my major. So I then took a year off, I actually got a job at the UW Law School for about a year. And then I attended UW Law School from 2005 to 2008. Unfortunately, that was right around the time the recession hit. So I came out of that into an awful job market. But I managed to find a position at the Legislative Reference Bureau here in Madison. I live in Verona now, near Madison, but still in the area. I kind of didn't start out in the attorney role, but after a while I did move into that. So just talking about a little bit of what I do, I've been there since. We draft legislation for the state legislature. So every bill, amendment, and other proposal that is put forward in the legislature, our office works on and writes those. And we also now publish the laws for the state, including the Wisconsin statutes and administrative code. So I've kind of gotten involved in a lot of those things, and so I'm involved in both drafting legislation as well as publication of our laws for the state of Wisconsin. And a few areas I have worked on that I just know in particular, I work on unemployment insurance. I don't know if you've seen the news. The legislature just passed a bill relating to the state's unemployment insurance system. Has a lot of old computers involved with it. And it's caused problems during COVID because of the number of people who suddenly filed for unemployment. So been heavily involved with that and some of the other things going on with unemployment insurance. I've also worked on professional licensing law and administrative law and some other areas. So we have a lot of interactions with people who work on the state budgets, legislators, obviously, the governor's office, whoever it happens to be at the time. We're a nonpartisan office, by the way, so we serve basically everybody in the legislature sort of equally to the best we can. And I just thought I would mention that in contrast to, I think, Kim, who was talking about what happens with a shutdown, we thankfully don't have to deal with shutdowns at the state level, so that's nice. And we provide a service that's pretty vital, so we are probably less sensitive to budget fluctuations, but that's always a concern for everybody. So anyway, I will shut up and let you guys get your questions.
Thanks, Mike. That is great to hear. I think law and government are two fields that are definitely heavily intertwined, and students interested in one tend to have an interest in the other as well. So I'm glad you'll be able to kind of speak to that.